This week on New to You, Weird Fact or Fiction, Part 4, The Narrows, Grant Lee Phillips.
Inside the mind, viewing from a distance, everything appears fine, but inside...
All right, hey everybody, welcome to the fourth and final in our Weird Fact or Fiction New to You show series. I am one of your hosts, John Holt. With me is...
Keith Vincent, one of your other hosts.
Julian Cage, your other host.
And joining us for the last time of this series, but we'll make sure it's not the last time of the show.
Matt Schwartz.
All right, welcome, Matt.
Thanks.
Thanks again for running this series with us.
I had a blast. This is awesome.
Good to be on. Good to have your pick on. Good to have your voice on.
Yeah, it's weird. You haven't shaved in the 4 weeks that we've been here, so it's like kind of like a big beard now.
It's crazy.
It's pretty cool.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's neat to just see it develop over the 4 weeks.
I've been grooming regularly.
Mm-hmm.
So my beard is not out of control.
It's shaped like Topiary from Edward Scissorhands.
Yes. Another one of my favorite found footage movies.
Yes.
Very documentary style.
Yeah.
Documentary, exactly.
It's a nice documentary explaining how like it never used to snow and now it snows.
Well, I don't know. I mean, what were your thoughts when Johnny Depp was passed out on the table and Vincent Price lit his pubic hair on fire? Did you guys have any issues with that, or was that?
Yeah, it's how you make a boy.
I guess. I guess.
You would know, Keith. You would know.
And Felix, that's where you came from.
Exactly. Great parenting tips.
So who's the new Vincent Price?
I think for a while it was Christopher Lee. I feel like he kind of filled the role of Vincent Price last decade.
Is it time for like a lady Vincent Price? Like
a lady Vincent Price has been around. Linda Hunt.
Oof.
Zelda.
Rubinstein?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. She'd show up in a movie and you're like, we're in the Vincent Price zone.
The V zone?
Yeah.
We're in the V zone.
I was thinking more like Morgan Freeman or someone like that who is like...
Raise an eyebrow.
So...
Morgan Freeman's not a lady, though.
Sorry. I stand corrected. Yes.
But him in a dress could be like the Vincent Price.
Morgana Freeman, though.
Morgan Freeman is
Morgana.
Yes. Morgan Freeman is the Zelda Rubinstein of today. Got it.
So
Linda Hunt, though, you got it.
I love Linda Hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't think of her as Vincent
She's
Price.
Silverado. She's like totally a Vincent Price type of character.
Okay.
So a Vincent Price character.
But Vincent Price in like Fall of the House of Usher era.
But we're talking, so they're sort of like the campfire, like they're like a camped out horror spectacular. And
who's that?
Vincent Price.
Yeah.
But not Linda Hunt.
Linda Hunt, though, she kind of feels that same, like she instantly has the
glamorous,
sagely
Liberace horror.
gravitas without even trying. Movie Silverado, just watch that movie, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Or just listen to the song.
Yep.
Silverado.
No, not that one.
You gotta come down off your fences. Is that the one?
Yep.
Silver hunting.
Yeah, I think.
It's getting on there. So,
speaking of songs like Silverado.
Yeah. So, and before we get into that, New to You Show is a review and discussion podcast where we discuss important things like who is the new Vincent Price and Keith's pick for this week's Fact or Fiction. Go for it, Keith.
Inside the mind, but inside the mind, but inside the mind, viewing from a distance, everything appears fine, but inside the mind, but inside.
One day, when these bones give way, gonna call my name and I will depart. Come that day, I won't be afraid. I'll rise from the flames like smoke and sparks.
Grant Lee Phillips, formerly of Grant Lee Buffalo, and his record from 2016 called The Narrows. And that's my pick.
All right. So why does the Narrows fit in Weird Fact or Fiction?
Oh, are we going? Well, let me discuss the record a little bit first. So, you guys might remember from previous podcasts that I like the band Grantley Buffalo. I even discussed them in a very emotional podcast last
That was
year.
the Gilmore Girls one we were talking about.
Yes. The theme was Gilmore Girls, and we had to kind of build from there. I was discussing it when we were talking about the death of our friend Jace.
Just about a year back.
Mm-hmm. He was the fella that turned me on to Grantley Buffalo, and I've been a fan of theirs for like 20-something years since. The band dissolved, and Grantley Phillips started making records, so I've loved almost all of his records as well. With that context in mind, what brings this into Strange Fact or Fiction is that upon researching for that episode, I realized I hadn't listened to Grantley Phillips in a while, and I was like, oh, he's got a new record out. And so I was listening to the record a lot. Some months later, I would say, so we recorded that sometime, I think in March, probably.
Was it March, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So around March, April, May, June, July, around July, I'm like, man, this record really reminds me of all the songs my dad writes. So I used to, turn my dad on to music anytime I find something that I think he likes. In fact, which is odd because he's much older than me, and he was around when Leonard Cohen first came onto the scene, but he never really got into Leonard Cohen. I kind of turned him on to that, and he really latched on to it. Over the time, there's been lots of bands that I've done that with him, and he's done, obviously influenced me tremendously. Around last, what did I say? July. I finally was just like, Dad, you gotta listen to this record. In fact, I said this to him. I'm like, this is a record that you would make, if you had the means. And I truly believe that these types of songs are right up my dad's alley. And in fact, just the types of themes and the types of stories that he tells in his songs. My dad's a songwriter, and so I told him that in July. That's right, because I went home for July, 4th of July. And so we went on YouTube, and I showed him a bunch of stuff, and we ended up buying this record for him on iTunes that same visit, and he really liked it. I will go through the list of songs and explain why they really remind me of him as well. But so here's the Strange Fact or Fiction. Remembering the death of my good friend Jace and his introduction to this band in that podcast led to me discovering this, and it led to me talking to my father about this specific song called Smoke and Sparks, which is track number 2 on the Narrows, which is about this guy's when his father died. So Grantley Phillips wrote this song called Smoke and Sparks about when his father died. A month later, maybe 2 months later, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and they said, well, you've got months to live. And it was this interesting thing where now Grantley Buffalo will always remind me of my friend Jace. This record will always remind me of my father. And I've got lots of records that will always remind me of my father, but this one in an odd way, almost in a very eerie way. I'm going to go through some of the tracks. We'll give a little backstory as well. My father lived his formative years in California, in L.A., and moved to Tennessee when he was an adult. Grantley Phillips, born, raised in California, moved to Tennessee when he was well into his middle age. And that's another thing about Strange Fact. Well, not Strange Fact, but Fact. All the songs on this record are either historical in nature or personal songs that are like true stories that happened to him or his family. Tennessee Rain is about kind of his first experiences in Nashville and experiencing, living in Tennessee. But Smoke and Sparks is an interesting, there are tons and tons of songs about people dying, but Smoke and Sparks I find to be particularly poetic's not the right word, but just peaceful in that it's a song about somebody dying, but kind of saying it's okay. It's like, don't worry about me. I'm dying, but it's kind of like the last big mystery anyway. So like, don't cry, don't worry. I'm just gonna go up like smoke and sparks, like embers fleeing this hearth. And I remember having that talk with my dad and thinking like, wow, I think that's kind of neat. You never really kind of hear, you hear these songs that somebody has written about their dad, and it's usually this kind of very, reminiscent and it's very personal. Almost in a lot of cases, almost so personal that it's not that you can't attach yourself to it very much. There's just something about that song, Smoke and Sparks, that I find to be a very healthy look at death for some people. The way death is, I don't know, there should be more of a healthy acceptance of death, in my opinion, among people of certain age, or you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, I think in the culture as a whole.
yeah, especially in medicine. I mean, blah blah blah. Moccasin Creek Moccasin Creek is track 3. And Moccasin Creek is a song about him going to basically his kind of ancestral home, like where his grandfather came from. And it's a song all about him kind of like exploring the landscape and trying to kind of feel his grandfather there, which is just so much of the types of songs that my dad would write songs about, you know, his grandmother, the time she escaped from the old folks' home. He would write songs. He was really into, my father was really, really into, toward the last, 15 years or so, really into the genealogy of our family and learning as much of the history of our family as he could. And he would then write songs about these relatives that he discovered we have. You know, he has actually more than one song about some relative that we're related to who was a Union captain of a boat on the Mississippi, and he's once he would latch on to some neat historical thing, he would write a song about it. It happened time and time again. Cry Cry is the same thing. It's about the Trail of Tears, which I think is a historical event that more people should know about. But that's the type of song my dad would write, about some historical event that doesn't get enough play. Holy Irons is another historical song about the Civil War. My dad wrote 2 songs about characters from the Civil War. Yellow Weeds is kind of a neat, like Tennessee or just way down south type of song where, as a person who relies on the land to, if it's kind of the story of a farmer who's just like, please rain, these yellow weeds are destroying everything. Loaded Gun in particular dramatically reminds me of my father in that it's kind of like this whirlwind love song about this guy who he's a construction worker, which my dad was until he died. And he's a guy who basically was kind of like fell in love with this woman and is off to the races. And he even mentions like leaving his job as a roofer and driving the old Ranchero north to go get married, which is really funny because I've never ever seen a Ranchero in my life other than the one my dad had. A Ranchero is the Ford's equivalent of the El Camino. It's not an uncommon car, but like I said, only the one that my dad drove is the only one I've ever seen, and it was actually one of the first cars I ever got to drive too, which was kind of fun. Taking on Weight in Hot Springs is it reminds me of my father very much in that my dad was a truck driver, and he would tell me time and time again of these stories of just like, it was hurry up and wait. You'd haul ass to get to some place, and then it's just like, okay, wait here, and you just got to kill time, and that's kind of what that song's about. Just another river town is kind of skippable. In fact, one of the few.
I mean, it's just another river town.
No, it's like that one and.
Well, you skipped by Rolling Pin as well.
Oh wait, no, Rolling Pin is the one that I was talking about, not Loaded Gun.
Right.
Oh. Yeah.
Loaded Gun is really awesome because that's more of a personal story in that it really reminds me of just being a kid and. Your form of entertainment is just driving fast in these back roads,
Yeah,
and
that is like a teenager driving with the gun in the back. Right?
Yeah, and you're basically a weapon. You're gonna hurt somebody or yourself, and that's and that song in particular, it's a fun driving. It's got a driving beat literally, and it's about like just driving. You see like weeds and stuff going, like a cornfields driving past.
Yeah.
Definitely. You and I were talking about this earlier, and I mixed that one up with Rolling Pin, actually. Mm-hmm. I think Rolling Pin has a pretty good rock and like an old Southern rock kind of feel to it. San Andreas Fault, just about California. It reminds me of my dad telling me stories of California. And Find My Way is another, out of a album of 13 tracks, having two kind of like two that you're not excited about, I think is a pretty remarkable feat. And not everybody would have these personal connections to the songs to make them interesting. But I think that, as a whole, the record is, you just push play and do whatever. There aren't many duds. But that was really, that's it. That's like the last record that I kind of could explore with my dad. And it came from a discussion of another great influencer on my life who had passed. So Grantley Phillips is a two-timer on the show for me. Now, why don't you guys try to say something bad about it? See what happens.
Well, let's just say.
Well, now I understand, because the whole time I was listening to this record, I was like, I don't see what's weird about this. And now I realize it's a very personal connection.
The whole time,
thing,
Grantley Phillips was watching Keith's
weird.
dad and writing songs about him.
Keith is the weird part.
Yep.
Got it.
It's weird,
but it's a great record. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great record.
Yeah.
I probably like more of the songs that are more storytelling than evocative. I mean, that's why I do like Loaded Gun and stuff like that.
Where it's a character.
A little more.
Yeah.
Even when you were talking just before about death and how you wish was more acceptable, I was like, oh, it's like listening to like Murder Ballads by Nick Cave.
Yes.
Where it's like you can have a little sense of humor about it and being like, that's life.
In fact, I think Wild Rose was one of our discussions here one day.
Nice.
Yeah, on the podcast.
Killer.
Yeah.
Obviously killer
Kylie
album, and
Minogue.
also, again, some storytelling elements in there. But the album itself, I think, reminded me a little more of like Nebraska by like Springsteen or something.
Yeah, I think in his older age, Grantley is kind of getting to that phase, which is funny because that was the early Bruce Springsteen era. But without 4-hour concerts that just go on forever.
Show off how much stamina he has.
Exactly.
Yeah, there were a few standouts. Smokin' Sparks definitely stood out for me, and Yellow Weeds from the Smokin' Sparks. I really did enjoy the allegory in there. I like the play, and then in Yellow Weeds, there's also this sort of aspect of like past time and sort of like a town being swallowed up, or whatever, but also your past being swallowed up, just by the passage of time.
He also has a lot of roots. He has a lot of relatives in Oklahoma, actually. His grandmother grew up in Oklahoma, so this might actually even be like a Dust Bowl story.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because that's something too. So you talked about the Trail of Tears. Did you all did you guys
and
learn
that
about
ended
it?
in
Did you learn
Oklahoma.
about it in school?
In Tennessee, in the 7th grade in Tennessee, you had to take Tennessee history. So Andrew Jackson was the president during the Trail of Tears. So we did, but it was never really portrayed as like a travesty to like as a national tragedy that this was allowed to happen. It was always just like, so they just moved the Native Americans up to Oklahoma, and it was almost as if it was just like, there you go, buddy, you get some free land, instead of like, no, we like forcefully took away these people's land and made them march to Oklahoma,
We definitely, we would have Native Americans come in and dance at the school and teach a lot of cultural stuff, and we would go to the Cowboy and Indian Museum, and there was probably that bent of like, there's still that mystique of the West and the Cowboys, but there was definitely this like, there was something not right about it. And even as like a first grader or second grader, you're learning enough to know that like they were not Oklahoma's, at least that time period, the bent that they were teaching was that horrors were visited upon these people, and there's a reason it's called the Trail of Tears. So and then did you, Matt or Jules, have any education in that?
Another one. I was in France for that.
That time of my school was a blur. So, maybe yes. But I don't recall really getting a good, certainly not in grammar school, of getting a good sense of the travesties visited upon them.
Well, that was the time too.
High
like
school certainly, but I mean grammar school, I don't think so. I don't
pe-
feel like
people at this time still weren't discuss. You know, when I was in school in the '80s, it wasn't. It still wasn't sophisticated enough to say like, oh, there was some complicated stuff going on against the Native Americans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That it's almost as if a lot of that discussion didn't come out until the '90s. You know, this kind of alternative.
Yeah, I think the challenge, like for us, was that it was, I mean, there were reservations.
Yeah.
You know, like.
So Holt was
Next
in
to-
Oklahoma as
yeah.
a child. So
that's like, and then the darker side of that is, you know, like I remember this because when we were visiting, I was a little bit older, like maybe 12 or something, and somebody, you know, I remember like an aunt or somebody saying like, end of the week, Indians got their checks. You be careful on those roads. So it's like or end of the month, you know, like,
Oh boy.
you know, it's just like, that's the kind of like that's like, you know, I mean, it's like a racially insensitive thing or someone who, you know, it's a dark thing. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that just like permeates. But I think when I was younger, we were getting a different angle. And then when I moved up to the Northeast, I learned more than I needed to know about pilgrims. So, and like landing on Plymouth Rock and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there was also a pretty strong tie, you know, the Pequot and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So tons of Native Americans all the time, everywhere. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's weird, and it's weird in Massachusetts and those areas because there's not nearly as much of a remnants of
Right.
the evidence of the Native Americans
Yeah,
that lived there.
and there are a few
I mean, there are a
historians
few
still.
names of towns and names of
Yeah.
places, but
Yeah, the names are actually probably the biggest
legacy.
of it. There are a few historians, like I remember a few people who like collected the arrowheads, and again, like Plymouth has an area that is run by some people. You have to have, used to be more, but now so you have to have some blood relation, and so there are people who are like
So it's there's a section that is a reservation.
not reservation. It's Plymouth Plantation is sort of like Colonial Williamsburg, where you have it's like reenactment. Like they have the plantation built, and you go, and there are people who are like living and acting like they are of the time of 16.
Yeah.
It stuck with me. 1642. I don't know. That's not right. But but that period, so like 17th century. Wait, yeah, right?
What?
No.
17th century?
No, 15th? No.
I don't know.
You don't know. Well, it's 17th century.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah,
17th.
It would
if
be-
it's
that would be
1600s.
17th century,
Yeah,
yeah.
1600s, so 17th century.
Yes.
Yeah, so you have people living like that, and then there's an area that is like you walk off in the woods, and it is like showing how the Native Americans were living at the time, and so they'll show you like how they make smoke huts, and they have a different series of structures than like a teepee structure is iconic, but it's not.
Yeah, that's a plains
Right.
construct.
And even then,
they had the long house.
Yeah, they had longhouses and wigwams and other stuff. But
So Grantley Phillips, in his family history, there is I think Creek. He's part Creek Native American, and as kind of an unofficial sequel to Cry Cry, but from an earlier. So Cry Cry might be like a prequel. I don't know, but from an earlier record called Virginia Creeper, he made this song called Susan Little, which is about his grandmother, and it's pretty neat because it's like at the beginning it deals with the fact that they were kind of second-class citizens, her and her family. The cool thing is they ended up striking oil, which is kind of a neat ending to the song. It's pretty cool. Yeah, Susan Little is just a beautiful song that he wrote. It's really great. It starts off with her like basically his grandmother being attacked on the street and I think alluded to being raped, and it talks about how her father was cheated out of his land by like deed swaps, which was a common thing, and then she finally married a guy who was like one of the few people that ever treated her nicely, and they found that there was an oil well on their land, and it's
like
pretty
Texas
cool.
tea,
Yeah.
black gold.
Mm-hmm.
They moved to California, and that's where Grant
That's why he was out.
Exactly.
They struck gold with that concept.
That's right.
What tracks do you like? What tracks, if you were putting a mix together, what's the track that you would use for sure?
The one track?
To
Well,
get to-
here's
I mean,
I'll
assuming
give you
that-
4. I'll give you 4 as what I consider the
Assuming you
standout.
got to seal the deal.
It's a Narrows heavy mix, clearly.
Yeah. No, you get one track to seal the deal.
Well, my personal favorite is Rolling
Cry.
Rolling Pin.
Rolling pin. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
All right.
A whirlwind romance. It's nice little story. If I had some runners up, Smoking Sparks is definitely a standout for me. Cry is, and
And you said another Rivertown?
no,
Not that one.
no.
It would be kind of fun to make like a mediocre mixtape.
I have on accident.
Well, now
Several
you
times.
gotta go
Yeah.
finesse that and make it just that
Tell me
much
about
better. Hey, now you're an all-star.
But that's it. That's Grant Lee Phillips. This guy's voice, I think, is just out of this world, and it's only gotten better as he's gotten older, which is, it started off. He started off singing in this interesting baritone in the '90s, where they used alternative tunings on their instruments to kind of like fit the range, and I just feel like he's only gotten better and better, and he's got this weird kind of showmanship about him, where if you see videos, he's maybe trying a little too hard on his dancing and all that, but I kind of feel like this showmanship is how you create a character with that voice. You know what I mean? And it makes a lot of sense that he was he wanted to be a magician when he was a kid, and he learned all the tricks and all that stuff. So for the longest time, he was like an LA regular type of guy, hanging out at the Largo with all the like comedians and stuff. So he's oddly will pop up in weird
connected,
stuff
yeah.
as like the troubadour with all these weird comedians, and
Right.
like the same way that
Amy Man.
Amy Mann, yeah. So he and Amy Mann are good pals, and they used to hang out at the Largo all the time.
I thought so. Now, he's duetted with her, right?
Yes, lots of times.
On a bunch of times, yeah.
And they used to run this like Christmas show or something like
They
this.
still, yes,
Yeah.
in fact, and I think he's even, unless I'm mistaken, I mean, he's on her Christmas album.
I'm certain
least
of it.
multiple
Yeah.
places.
Yeah. But now he lives in Nashville. I guess hanging out with Jack White. I don't know if he is, but but he's definitely hanging out with Dan Auerbach, because that's his studio they used to make this record. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you sent around some live footage of him playing too. It's interesting to like, because I've watched him to go back to Gilmore's Girls or whatever. You see him in there when he was much younger, and he's kind of got a squeaky voice a little bit, and now his voice has got like a little rumble.
Yeah.
A little smoke in there.
Yeah, well, the conversation stuff is a little annoying in that clip, but it's not his fault. But to hear him be able to perform these songs with just him and a guitar is pretty amazing. I mean,
Yeah. I got confused though because I put the deluxe version on, because Spotify has like a deluxe version with some like
Yeah.
remixes or whatever.
Yep.
And then the other thing about Spotify is it'll autoplay.
Yeah.
And it'll just keep going. So
and
it's
it'll
like, wow,
play.
This is a very
it'll play songs that they think are
Tangentially
Yeah,
related.
exactly.
It's like, wow, so it took a twist. The deluxe version has like a dance remix.
Well, he did put out a record. What was it called? He put out a record that had kind of a couple of like electronic kind of elements to it.
It was probably like it had gone on to another track from his like catalog.
Yep.
So it was.
Let me see if I can find what it is called. Mobilize. Mobilize is the record that came out in 2001 that kind of had some like electronic elements to it. Good record too. That's all I got to say about it.
Cool. Yeah, Jules.
Stuff. I liked it.
Jules liked
Thumbs
it.
up.
So much enthusiasm.
Laughed, I cried, it became a part of me.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to second that.
Well, to be fair, I didn't get to like listen to it like a lot. you
Yes,
know?
yes.
So-
No, I know what you're saying. I'm just teasing. And
Were there any-
obviously you didn't know the context. So
Were there any music videos they made of this?
Yeah, lots. They're not
Like picture ones, right? You
Yeah, quite a few, but Grant Lee is kind of a character, and when he starts dancing around, it's kind
It's a
of
little
interesting.
distracting.
Did he tour for this?
I'm not certain. Yeah, he did actually, because the video clip that I found on YouTube of him performing them at an NPR type of place, he was there to perform at a place in Seattle.
So which song would you karaoke from this track?
Let me see. No idea.
Just Another River? Rivertown?
Rolling Pin.
Yeah, Rolling
Probably Smoking Sparks in this situation. It would be easier to sing.
Pin. Loaded Gun.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun one to sing.
Nah, that'd be hard.
Well, if we had to acapella it.
But it reminds me, that song actually reminds me of a Chuck Berry song, speaking of dead people.
Ouch.
But this song, Maybelline, which is just an all-time classic for me, it has some elements.
Maybe she's born with it.
Maybelline, why can't you be true? Oh, Maybelline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe she's born with it.
You done going back doing the things you used to do. But
at
yeah,
those
that's kind of got
lance.
some similar themes to Loaded Gun, actually.
Matt, any last thoughts on?
Well, Matt and I have seen some shows together from the good old days, from
nice.
the 80s and 90s stuff. And so I was surprised to hear that you never...
What'd we see?
Didn't we see the Go-Go's?
I didn't see the Go-Go's with you.
No, we saw Old 97s.
I saw that with you.
We saw Liz Phair.
Liz Phair, that's it, yes.
In her Exile in Guyville tour.
No, it wasn't even White Chocolate Space Egg. It was
No,
probably
no.
Fun Home. I mean, it was probably...
Yeah, no, it was kind of retrospective.
It was Funhouse. It was probably her Funhouse.
Was
or
it a
Fun
new
Home.
record that she was doing? I
It
just thought she was
I mean,
playing,
it
yeah.
was. I mean, it wasn't the tour she did this year, but yeah, that was. Yeah, we've seen some stuff together. No, I mean, Listen, I steer more towards, I guess, rock and alternative a little, but I mean, I like this kind of stuff a lot. I mean, like you, I mean, I share a lot of memories. I mean, my dad is. My dad has taught me a lot of music he loved. I give him a lot of music I love. He was definitely, still is. He's more into the Ry Cooder, Eric Clapton kind of stuff and Dire Straits.
Yeah.
I probably have pushed him more into kind of new wave alternative stuff, more on the I mean, I took him to see. I mean, I made him take me to see like Berlin and the City back when I was a teenager. He took me to see Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac. I mean, so like we share a lot of
and they're
that
doing
stuff.
a reunion tour soon. Fleetwood Mac, or well, no,
well,
it's
last
a
year they
reunion.
did. Last year they did.
Yeah,
the
they're doing the
Fleetwood reunion.
last tour.
Yep, no, but Stevie Nicks is doing a show
She's
here
touring
in
right
New
now
York.
with Pretenders.
Mhm.
So she's touring
with
right
the
now
Pretenders.
with
Yeah, that's badass.
She puts on a great show, and Fleetwood Mac is great. Christy McVie, amazing job last year. But I mean, this is definitely my dad's kind of music, a little more than me. I mean,
Yeah, it's definitely got a
plays guitar
70s
and
feel
stuff,
to it
and
as well.
It's just this, and it's again, but I mean, I really like it. I mean, it's super well.
No, but what I
produced.
was going to ask is if Grant Lee Buffalo was ever a thing during its first go around, if you ever remember them or noticed them. No.
Not my kind of music.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly I knew the name and stuff, but I mean, I probably, again, more grunge and alternative at that time. I mean, I think as I've gotten older, I've mellowed out a bit, and now I can appreciate this more. For what
Well,
it is.
I mean, when Grant Lee Buffalo came out, it was definitely grouped in with grunge.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The
I'll have to go back and listen to.
yeah, the first record.
Earlier
Well, I
stuff
don't
then.
remember their first. Fuzzy. It was their record that was like playing. It was on 120 minutes during that era. So that was one of the reasons why I was like, oh yeah, Matt would have heard these guys because they were. I don't know. They got some airplay.
I have some serious gaps in my music knowledge.
No.
So.
Me too.
I know everything about music. I am the second coming of Matt Pinfield.
I laugh at Matt Pinfield.
And he laughs back because we know everything about music.
I like this character.
You like that? Yeah. The second coming of Matt Pinfield.
He's who you meet through the seventh gate.
Yeah. The third gate was written in the 50s.
And I got a Davida.
Yeah.
But anyway, Grant Lee Phillips.
Cool.
Yeah,
Good
The
pick.
Narrows.
So people can listen to it on Spotify. It's available on iTunes and all that stuff.
And,
Sure is.
and on YouTube, your favorite place to see things without paying for them.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Yeah, I see like 80 movies a year on YouTube.
exactly, on YouTube.
Yeah,
Great.
I bring him into a movie theater and I just like put him on my laptop.
I'm wearing headphones,
Yeah,
okay?
I don't got my phone out.
Right, got it.
It's just my laptop.
No.
Yeah, I want to watch this movie, but I also want to watch what's the guy's name? The PewDiePie.
Whatever, yeah, PewDiePie's commentary on Logan.
Yes.
I just wanted to know, like, what is a creator, a YouTube creator, like, what do they have to say about Get Out? Jordan Peele's classic, like, look at race and turning horror on its head.
Is that PewDiePie?
No, that's someone who really likes listening to people like PewDiePie
Okay.
talking
Got it.
about how they can really only appreciate these things
They really speak
in the
for my
in
generation.
the round, if you would, with like all my media informing me.
Got it.
Holt's whipping out the voices tonight.
Yeah.
It's all I got.
Oh, yeah.
It's impressive.
My vocal cords are excited from our
Yeah,
playmats.
I like it.
Yes.
left over from 2 weeks ago.
That's right. The residuals. Thanks for the pick, Keith.
Hey,
It was a good time.
anytime.
All right.
Anytime.
In the winter when the streams are frozen, in the winter when the birds don't sing, that's when I lost my home, when I lost everything. Kept a walking till my feet were bloody, left everything we knew. When they took us across the Mississippi, nothing that I could do but
Such a question, there are many possible answers, such as hard work.
Feel I'm alone in this whole of existence.
Gang, thank you for listening to another episode of the New to You Show. That wraps our series of Weird Factor Fiction. We'll come at you next week with a new topic and a new pick. We'll cue that in just a second here. But before that, I was one of your hosts, John Holt. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho, and you can find me on Instagram at board_ghost. And you can find my podcast where we play role-playing games to tell stories at boardghost.com. Keith, where can people find you?
You can find me at earthlingkeith.com.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Beautiful Jules. How about you, Matt?
I'm on Facebook. Look for Matt Schwartz for someone who's posting about horror movies.
All right, Matt, thanks again for joining us. It was a
Sure.
blast having you here.
I had a blast. too.
Yeah, we hope to have you back sometime.
It was
Yeah.
awesome.
And before we let you go, what was new to you this week?
So new to me was actually new to everybody because it's a movie that's just out.
Jordan Peele's
No,
Get
it's
Out.
definitely not Get Out, although I love Get Out. I don't think that's new to anybody at this point. But Raw is an interesting new French film about a teenage girl in veterinarian school who's a vegetarian who gradually realizes that she might prefer the cannibal way of life. It's gotten a lot of press for people passing out while watching it, and
Whoa.
theater recently started giving out barf bags.
Whoa.
That's not the reason to see it. I actually didn't find it that gross, but
Is that like gimmicky, like Herschel Gordon or whatever?
I think I think people who don't normally watch dark movies, there are a couple scenes that might make them want to throw up. But for those of us
Can you
who
describe one of these?
I can't. I actually don't want to describe one scene in particular. But honestly, what I'll say is that there's anybody who's seen dark movies or horror movies is not going to be shocked by this. What I'll say that it has the same level of realism that something like Green Room has, which I think is why it bothers people, is that the gore I found to be sparing, but when it's done is very realistic to the point where if you don't like the sight of blood, period, it's going to be hard for you to watch because it doesn't come off as a joke. The film itself it's not a perfect film, but it definitely is teenage girls coming of age sexuality manifesting itself in dark ways, and it's definitely a kissing cousin to movies like Ginger Snaps or Teeth. In particular, I don't think it really has that level of social commentary, but it's a debut film, beautifully done, disturbing, and while I have some issues with it, it definitely ends correctly, which is a big that's mandatory for me to pretty much recommend a film. So for those with the stronger stomachs and looking for something a little different, I recommend it.
But it's like it's not worse than like Saw or something like that.
Well, I also don't find. I don't find Saw to be especially believably gross. I think there are things, again, it's very realistic, and I think that there's one or two scenes in particular that may really bother some people, but it is, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It depends. I mean,
so it really comes down to how realistically they portrayed it.
It's super, like I said, it's super realistic. But to me, the people I were with were bothered by it way more than I am. And on the other hand, you've got a stupid movie like The Cure for Wellness, which I actually had to watch through like my hands over my eyes because it dealt with like teeth, which I have a very hard time watching things with. And that was a terrible film. And I love Gore Verbinski, which is a bad film. But this one, I mean, I think is, like I said, to me, it is effectively much more of a drama character study with a horrific edge to it. But for people who like, it's French. I mean, you know what French dark films are like. They're nuts. I mean, so like it's for people who like that kind of, beautiful, haunting edge mixed with this like, razor sharp nastiness, it's definitely unique and worth checking out. But don't go because you've heard of people vomiting or passing out. I mean, go because you want to see something different.
Yeah,
that's what I'll say.
Because I know the trailers I saw for it were like more. It's almost more like art housey.
It's total art house.
There's two. The first trailer I saw was like glimpses of weird stuff and like weird situations and like very much focused on the girl. There's one other. There's like an extended trailer that had like more creepy stuff.
And it's total art house drama with a really dark edge to it. But like, I mean, I think the guys I were with, their big regret was that we were seeing it at Alamo Drafthouse and they were eating while they were watching it, and like they pretty much had to put down their food and be like, this is probably not the best combo of like lunch and watching this, but it really is, it is an art house film. It's subtitled. It's not going to appeal to a wide audience, but it is pretty much story driven and character driven. So it's not if you like stuff that's a little weird and different, it's worth watching. And actually, I think if you do like Ginger Snaps or Teeth, movies that play off of, again, coming of age in a very dark way, I think you'll find a lot to like in it.
Yeah, I liked Teeth a lot.
Yeah, I love Teeth. This does not have obviously the humor or the social commentary of Teeth.
Yeah.
But Teeth is the closest of where I think it was trying to go.
Yeah.
Very different film, but also, Teeth is another one where like when I saw Teeth, like I was laughing half the time.
Yeah.
And so it was like I was there with another guy, and it's like me and the other gay guy and like 10 women in the audience are laughing, and like their boyfriends are like having their heads in their hands being like, I can't watch this, but we just couldn't stop laughing the whole time. So, different strokes for different folks, but Teeth is actually a pretty good comp title in some ways to Raw in its own way.
Cool.
So,
where's Raw airing? Sorry.
Whereas I think Raw now, I mean, as at this moment, which is not the moment that.
Yeah.
I mean, but like it's playing, I think, in at least like 9 or 10 cities at this point.
Cool. Yeah, it got a
so
broader.
It's been expanding slowly. I know it's playing in most major cities and at least one theater.
Good.
Yeah.
So go find that cool artsy theater
Exactly.
out there, people.
And don't order maybe food while watching it.
Or at least just order salad or something.
Yeah, or whiskey. So one of those.
Eat your whiskey.
Exactly.
All right. So before we wrap up here, Matt, if you were in Slipknot, what would your mask be?
What? Oh my God. I don't even have a good response to that. So you pick a mask for me. That's a terrible question for me.
Why is
Bumblebee.
that
It would be
a
a
terrible
bumblebee
question? Because
mask.
there's too many choices?
It'll be that
Well,
head.
you've watched a lot of horror movies.
Yeah,
You've got a
it'll
lot
be
of
that, like, head
ideas to
from
choose
felt,
from.
that like weird crocheted head.
Yeah, exactly. I'm more thinking of like from The Strangers with like the pig head on or something like that, or like You're Next. I mean, definitely like the big pig head, maybe standing at the window. That would be
That's a good
great.
one. That's a good one.
So I haven't really thought a lot of time about. I don't wear masks.
Yeah,
I
but,
take-
Yeah, but you don't
would
play in
have to.
Slipknot either. But if
No.
you were in Slipknot, you would have to have a mask.
I know it's true. I think I'm pretty good about taking pride in my subversive activities that I don't have to wear a mask when I do things that society frowns upon. I own it.
Yeah.
All
So you
right.
just
Even-
your
even-
mask would be no mask.
Exactly.
Just
He
a
would be
face
the-
tattoo.
He would be the guy. He would be the guy in Slipknot that's like, no, guys, I'm proud to be in Slipknot.
Right.
I know what I'm doing.
That's no one, right? Just to be clear.
As
Just
he
so I can
pounds on the
clarify.
dulcimer.
Exactly. Got it.
That's just something we ask of all our guests.
Oh, okay. So you guys
try-
aren't gonna answer it. I don't get to hear what masks you guys.
Oh,
wear.
No,
We already answered it, so you can go to the
past.
backlogs.
Yeah.
And
You can
Okay.
dig it up.
Listen to the previous 96 hours of footage,
Yes.
just so I can finally understand what
think it was
masks
the
look
new-
like.
the
You guys-
new
I just
metal
don't
episode.
remember what I
It was in
said.
the new.
I don't remember what I said
Got
either.
it.
Yeah, it was in the whatever series has the new metal.
I
Yeah.
assume there's some kind of wiki for your podcast
Oh,
somewhere that
there's
I can go
gotta
through
be.
and find.
I don't
it.
even know if there's a search function.
I don't know.
Okay. I may create a wiki then. So.
That's right. We need to track the masks. Very important.
We'll need to start going back and making sure we're covered on guests and their mask choices.
Yeah, good point. I definitely don't think we've missed a couple people.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to hunt him
We didn't
down.
ask Mr. Mister what his mask would be.
We'll get there. Matt, again, thanks so much for being on.
Thanks
it
for
was
having
a
me.
blast having you on here. To find out more about where you are on Facebook, Matt.
Exactly.
to find out more about all of our picks, Toad Road, The Narrows, Jules' pick, Finders Keepers,
Barbarossa.
Barbarossa.
and the beautiful bulbish bouncing Barbarossa, the deck building card game.
Totally historically accurate.
Yeah. Yes, nothing offensive about it.
No, with more boobies.
Go learn about that at newtoyoushow.com. You can follow us on Twitter at newtoyoushow. We can also be found on iTunes, where you should rate and review us.
Yeah.
If you have a preferred listening portal, go subscribe so you always get the latest episode, and share the show with other people. The more it's shared around, the more impetus we have to stay on topic.
The fewer offensive
research.
jokes we tell.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a deal.
And you know
Hashtag
what?
Tripod.
Yeah.
That's the name of the mascot of our group.
Right.
Is a three-legged dog.
It's Willem
Right,
Dafoe-
Tripod?
it's Willem
Good job,
Dafoe.
buddy.
And once we've each severed one of our legs, we'll be a tripod.
That's right. Good thinking. But
We'll
where
have
are we
to
going
lean
to
on each
find
other.
3
Grills?
meat smokers?
Yeah, exactly.
They can fit at the one. You just gotta
Yeah,
get a big
you're right.
one.
You're right.
Yeah. All right, gang.
We'll just skip that part. Send him to that lady. She'll put him in plastic or whatever.
So next week our topic is going to be
Next week we start the new theme of springtime or spring.
spring.
Bang.
So I'm going to bring to the table a wonderful record from, I believe, 2008 called Rearrange Us by Mates of State. So if you want to be up on the action, go listen to that, and we'll see you next week.
All right, and that's available on Spotify.
Every place.
all the music places.
Yeah, all the places.
YouTube for you cheapos.
Yep, YouTube for your people trying to test it out before you commit.
Exactly.
I'm not saying you're cheap.
But I'm saying just throw the money down. Throw it down.
Take a chance.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or listen to it on the free version of Spotify with
Yeah.
ads.
Yeah.
All right. So
if you listen to it on YouTube, you get to see some of the cool videos too. So.
All right.
gang, it may not be new, but maybe
maybe
it
it's
was new to you.
Explosion sound.
It's all about the music. This pitiful life is all about the music.
Be with him together forever, without the limitation of time ever again. So the second coming of the Lord is not dead. They're two separate